Hey guys, it's Jana, and today I'm going to be going over my January wrap-up. I'm not sure quite how I want to do these yet. I do tend to hit big numbers in a month, so I was a little intimidated on how to approach this. I'm going to do it the most straightforward way this time, see if I like it. If not, I'm going to keep finding a different iteration that does work for me. Let me know if there's a way you know of that would be easier to get through the 26 books I read in January. My first book of the year was Don't Puck With My Heart by Sarah Blue. It is a hockey Omegaverse romance. So amazing. We love it when they take two of my favorite things and we put them together. What I liked about this one is that they don't start off as a pack, so you follow them all individually as they come together. So no one is like already in this grouping of relationships, so it's them all figuring out like how to be together, and I love that. And I gave that one 4 stars. And my first audiobook of the year was My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This really surprised me because at first I was a little like hesitant about it, because this is a book about a girl who is obsessed with slashers, and she talks about them like a mile a minute, like constantly throwing information at you. And I am not a horror or thriller movie girly at all. Like, I don't really watch them. I watch maybe like 2 to 3 a year, maybe. It did take me a bit to be like, okay, it's all right that I don't understand what she's talking about. I just like that she's passionate about it. By the end of this book, I was really like rooting for Jade, and obviously I've remembered her name out of the 26 books I read this year. Remembering someone's name, amazing. That means that they've really like sunk into my brain. And I also gave this one 4 stars. I've heard that there's a second book that also has Jade in it, so I will be picking that one up soon. The next book I read was Gild by Raven Kennedy. This is the start to a much longer romantasy series. I really want to pick up more books in this series. This book was mainly set up, and I can see why a lot of people don't like it and don't connect to it, like a preemptive glimpse into what's happening before there's really a lot of action. This is a like King Midas retelling. King Midas is the guy who like touches things and turns them to gold. She's basically something that has been turned to gold. She's like a living gold statue. And so it's just about her life in the palace, setting everything up for what I think is going to be like the main conflict of the series. So I gave that 3 stars. Then next I picked up Magic Burns by Ilana Andrews. I really enjoy Kate Daniels. Like, I think she's just such a great perspective to read from. I'm just loving this world, and it's very interesting. It's like a dystopian, but there's like technology and magic are kind of like at odds with each other, and when there's a magic surge, like you can't use technology. Sometimes they like can't drive a car, so sometimes they're like getting a horse. Like, I don't know, it's just a lot of fun. And then I'm really proud that I picked up Jade War by Fonda Lee next. I gave this book 5 stars. Obviously, it really knocked me off my feet. Not surprised, because I know I love this series. I gave the first book 5 stars. I gave this book 5 stars. I'll probably give the next one 5 stars. It is just such a political, like, heavy fantasy, and the politics are maneuvering. Yeah. And I just love following the family in this. They're all kind of badass. You root for them, but you also know they're in like a highly like contentious situation. So you're like, okay, what bad thing's gonna happen next? Because I read book 1 and I know bad things happen to these people. So it is a little like, okay, like I feel like I'm like holding on tight and I'm being like, okay, these are my favorites. Please don't hurt my favorites. And then they do. So it is what it is. And I read Devil of Dublin by B.B. Easton. This is a childhood friends to lovers. He is like an orphan who gets adopted by a priest, and this girl ends up going into the woods to like play with fairies, and she sees the orphan boy there hanging out as well, and so they become fast friends as children do. Like, a good portion of this book does take place when they're kids, and that kind of took me by surprise. I would say like the first 100 pages they're still kids, but you really need that to like believe in why like they would care about each other as adults after like not talking for, I think it's like a decade. So this was just a lot of fun, and I think it's a fairly like unique romance. I did give it 3 stars. For me, 3 stars means like I had a good time. I just don't see myself rereading this. Super fun, and I would read more by this author. Oh my god. Next, I read all of the Atlas 6 books. So I will just hold the Atlas 6 up and you can pretend that I'm holding up all of these, because they're like, I'm getting a little sweaty in this. Anyway, so I read the complete Atlas 6 trilogy this month. I was so hyped for the sequel. I have really connected to the characters in these books. Libby Rhodes is my everything. Olivia Blake gave Annoying Girls Rights with Libby Rhodes, and I told her that in person at Comic-Con this year. I'm sure that has just connected in her mind. I think I also said, I have never so unfortunately felt seen. And if you've read this, you might know why, or if you identify with being kind of an annoying girl, you'll find out when you love Libby Rhodes. So I would say this is like a 4-star series for me overall. It just doesn't totally take it all the way to like a total 5-star series for me. There's definitely like some places where I was like, oh, like I wish this had gone differently, or I wish this would be more fleshed out. But I do just think Olivia Blake wrote action and like tension and the relationships between these 6 people. I should probably explain what it's about. Obviously it's dark academia, so 6 people get taken into what is like kind of like the hidden library of Alexandria. In our world, obviously, like that stopped existing, but in this one it's just hidden by magic, and I think it's like every 10 years they picked students to join this society, learn more, and then contribute to the library itself. So that's what this is. I love that. Like I said, 4-star series. I'm a little sad it's over, but I'm also excited to see like what she comes out with next. I know she has a big backlog, but I really do just prefer series. So I'm hoping that she writes another series. I needed a little bit of just like something quick, something I knew I was going to enjoy. And so this was Burn Dreams by Neva Ache. This is a mafia series, and this is like, I think like 6 or 7 in the series. What I love about this series is couple has at least someone who has a disability of some way. Obviously, like these men are in dangerous situations. Sometimes they get shot in the leg or blown up, or like a myriad of other things happens to them. So this one was kind of fun because it's actually like a bodyguard romance. So this girl is actually married to a mafioso. Her husband is super overprotective of her, and they don't have like a love match. They're together because her brother lost her as a gambling debt. So in the past, the husband actually killed the bodyguard's wife, and so he's out for vengeance. So he's like, okay, he took my wife, I'm gonna take his. So he was gonna murder her, but obviously instead they fall in love. That's what you want. I read my first historical fiction of the year, which is A Rogue to Remember by Emily Sullivan. This was a lot of fun. This was a childhood friends to lovers. He's like a spy who works with her uncle, and she's like trying to ruin herself so she doesn't have to get married. So this had a really fun setup. I had a good time. I gave this like a 4 overall. I felt like I wanted a little more like danger. It did just feel like not too much happened in here, even though it had a super interesting setup and like the drama was there, but I just wanted like a little bit more from it. But this was a solid start to my historical romance reading of the year. And then I marathoned all of the Foxhole Court. We'll link down below. I did a spoiler vlog for my friends because All the Games series by Nora Sokovic is some of my friends' favorite books. So I just really wanted to meet the characters, and I will spoil you and say, yes, I really liked these. I've been looking at fan art and sending them to my friends all month because I'm just like, oh, look how cute, look how cute. So I really like that now I can talk to them about this. And also the author announced that there's going to be 2 more books in this series, not following these same characters, but other side characters that are in this. And I'm very excited to pick those up as well. And I would say this is also like a 4-star series for me. And I picked up A King of Flesh and Bone by Liv Zander. I read the whole duet. This was my fantasy romance, my romantasy spin for January. I will say, like, I think I gave 1 2 stars and 1 3 stars. Like, it was entertaining and the author had a lot of good ideas. They just weren't executed. Like, a lot of stuff that should have happened on page was like quickly summarized, or all of a sudden she was like, I love you. And I was like, when did that happen? Like, when did you start loving him? Because it's like a captor-captive situation. And then out of nowhere, she's like, I love you? Please. And this should have just been 1 book. The fact that she drew this out into 2, like, 1, they're not even that long. She should have just put them together. Like, I don't know. Sometimes, like, this felt like a little greedy to me. Then I picked up Miss Laden. Oh, God, I've said this name wrong every time. Mislaid in parts, half known. Sorry, I had to look down to be like, okay, what is this? By Shannon McGuire. This is the newest in the Wayward Children's books, and I absolutely adored this. This was great. 4 stars, very solid, a great entry into the series. This is, I think, like the maybe 8th or 9th book in this series. So we've been with these characters for a while, and I pick them up every year as they come out. And I just think Shannon's really good at making you connect to them. And because I think normally I'd be a little like, oh, I don't really want to read from a children's point of view, but the things that they're dealing with feel so relatable, even as an adult. They really explore like a lot of feelings and friendship and finding your place in the world. And how to deal with that. So I really like this one. Can't wait to pick up the next one in the series when that comes out as well. I will say, I wish this had more dinosaurs. Put dinosaur on the cover, show me more dinosaurs. And then I picked up Don't Want You Like a Best Friend by Emma R. Albin. This is an FF historical romance. So this was my 2nd historical romance of the year. If you can't tell, I am smiling. I am happy. This was a 5 star for me. This is 2 friends who meet while they are like debuting into society to try to find husbands. One of them, this is their 4th season, and the other one, this is their 1st. So they become fast friends, and then they decide, so that they don't have to get married, that they should try to get their parents together. Just had a smile on my face. I got through this in 1 day. I was just like so happy the whole time I was reading this. So 5 stars, so easy. And then I reread Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies so that I could pick up the 2nd book in the series. So I read this book and the 2nd book just back to back. I love Emily Wilde. If you're a fan of Veronica Speedwell, you will also love Emily Wilde. She is basically a scientist about fairies. So she's super obsessed with fairies. She like goes out to the field, gathers research about them, like talks to them, writes papers, and also is a college professor. In the first one, she goes off on like an expedition to fill out her encyclopedia that she's making about fairies. Another professor ends up following her there. His name is Wendell. And if you think you can't fall in love with a man named Wendell, Emily's gonna show you wrong. So this is just such a solid like fantasy series that really like brings you in, and just like a fun adventure. It has lots of action. It has the perfect kind of reluctant like woman who is like, yeah, I guess I like you. Like, you're here. But it's just like so good, and I just love it. And also, like, look at the little mushrooms. And then I picked up Cherished by Emily Emerson. This is a 3rd book in the Luna and Soul series. This is an Omegaverse that takes place in kind of like a dystopian society that had an oppressive government. Now the government's been overthrown. This one has like a lot of rules that like how the different like social designations like have different rights. And since they dismantled the government, this one actually talks a lot about how they're trying to change the new government and influence it so that it'll make actual like better laws that work for people. Had great like chronic illness rep. I also love that it wasn't one of those series where she says like, oh, I don't want to have kids, and then by the end they have a kid because they're like, oh, well, I'm happy now. The whole pack decides that they don't want a kid, and I just thought it had a lot of things that I haven't really seen super well represented in Omegaverse before, and so this was just another 5-star. It made me happy. It made me sad. I cried on a train while I read this. She really put me through it. If you like Omegaverse, check out the Luna and Soul series. It's so good and a little different. And then I picked up a book club book, which was Bloom by Delilah Dawson. This is I feel like you can tell, this is what an off-putting story. I give it 4 stars. This, I don't even want to say too much because it's only like 170 pages. So you just need to read it, especially if you're a horror girly. This starts out with a professor who goes to I think it's like a flea market or I don't know what it's called. Yeah, I guess it's a flea market, and buys cupcakes. And so it's the relationship between the professor and the girl who sells cupcakes. And you're just gonna have to go into that one blind. Okay. Next, I read all 3 of the Crescent City books. I was insane last month. I'm just gonna pick this one up. These ones are big boys. I absolutely adore book 1. I've given all 3 books 5 stars. I will say maybe the second one didn't warrant a 5-star from me, but because I love these characters so much, it almost feels like a betrayal if I don't give them all 5 stars. You probably already know what this is, but it's an urban fantasy. Don't want to like give too much away if you haven't already heard about it, because you probably have. So I won't go on about this, but I really loved this whole series and I loved the conclusion. It really paid off to me and I was like, wow, like she did that. Like it just felt like so solid to me. Everything came together in a way that I just adored, and I loved seeing my favorite characters again because I've read both 1 and 2 before, and so these 2 were rereads, and then I went straight into book 3 and I obsessively read that for like 2 days to finish. An 800-page book in 2 days. I swear my eyes were twitching, but I had to know because I really just didn't want to run into any spoilers, because with Sarah J. Maas, people are going to start posting memes before like an hour into it being out. And I'm like, how'd you read that in an hour? Like, I'm insane, but you're insane. And then my final book, I'm also smiling, was Nobody Like Us by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the conclusion to the Like Us series. This is the 13th book in the Like Us series and the final book. So this book follows the children from the Addicted series. So it's almost like you had to read 23 books to get to this one. So I have read those 23 books. So I won't really be talking about this book because obviously like it's the 13th book in a series. Just that I absolutely adored it. I loved the scenes we got of everyone together at the end, and a lot of the emotional stuff that these characters go through and the growth and the therapy. I love that this couple is so communicative. Is that how you say that? I don't know. And they really just like talk through things with each other. You can really say, hey, like this is how I felt about this. So I love this. And so at the end of the month, I'm just all smiles because I just read such good books in January. So I'm hoping that I can like take this in to all of this year and just really only pick up amazing books. So those were all of the books that I read in January. Let me know what your favorite book of January was. Thank you so much for watching.